What's up, everybody? It's Jrod, the filmmaker, former film major, frequent fighting gamer from Philadelphia, and happy Black History Month. And welcome back to another episode of Ufilmee. This time, we're going to the Academy Awards. Okay, we're not actually going to the Academy Awards, but I did watch them last night. I actually watched a lot of movies that were nominated in order to prepare, and so we're going to react to basically everything that happened at the Oscars. So just to give you a little breakdown, table of contents. First, I am going to review shortly all the movies that I saw that were nominated for Best Picture. Then I'm going to talk about what were my predictions. Was I right? Yes or no? Talk about some honorable mentions and movies that might have gotten snubbed. And then we'll just, overview everything from there and break it all down. So without further ado, let's get right into this video because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Like I said, I'm going to start by shortly reviewing every movie that I saw that was nominated for Best Picture. And I really did try this year to see a lot of them. I saw the overwhelming majority. There were only 3 that I did not see. The films that I did not get to see are Little Women, Ford vs. Ferrari, and The Irishman. I wanted to check out all the films, I just ran out of time, and so those are the ones that didn't make it. So I'm not going to have any review or any opinion on these movies, for better or for worse. So for the movies that I did see, first, we got Marriage Story. Marriage Story is one of the big hypes of this year's Academy Awards. It was a lot about the performances and the writing of it, and people just loved it. And personally, I hated Marriage Story. I thought it was so boring. I did not really find a redeemable quality of the movie, except for maybe performance. I will definitely give them performance, but seeing Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson play actors, I was not too blown away. There was a great performance, but it was so slow. It was so boring. I thought the pace was terrible, and by the end of the movie, I did not feel satisfied. So I'm going to put Marriage Story down as the most overrated movie of the Oscars this year, because I wouldn't even have nominated it for anything. Number 2, we've got Joker. Now, hey, Joker is kind of the dark horse here because it's the comic book movie, and no one wants to consider the comic book movie for, real prestigious film awards such as the Academy Awards. But Joker was surprisingly good. I was really hesitant to watch it just because it can be a bit problematic if you think about it. But I think it was handled well. It was handled very sensitively, and it gave you a nice, intimate, and close look at not just the Joker, but a loose adaptation of the Joker, and also just an interesting, complex character dealing with mental illness. And I thought overall it was way better than I expected. I think it breaks out of the mold of the comic book film, and it's just a good film, just an all-around good film. Number 3, Jojo Rabbit. Now, Jojo Rabbit is really up there for me. I thought it was really fun to watch, and that is crazy considering what the movie is about. But it's a really easy movie to get into. Really, it doesn't bore you like some of the other movies. The pacing is great, the action is great, the comedy in it is great, and it all works together to give you this really great story. Performance was good, but nothing spectacular, as I do feel like these types of films we see a lot. They're kind of a dime a dozen. We'll see more just like it because there's a tried and true message that these movies are trying to get across that, doesn't always. But I did like Jojo Rabbit. Number 4, 1917. 1917 was amazing. It was so brilliant. The thing about it is when I'm talking about Jojo Rabbit, I'm kind of in the mindset that I'm tired of these war movies, and it's like, yes, we've seen these things happen a bunch of times, and we'll see it again in the future. So how do you make it interesting? And 1917 made it so interesting, the way that the narrative is just constantly carried through motion and by the camera, and you get tone, and you get speed, and you get distance, you get all those things conveyed by the language of cinema, by the camera and its relation to what's on the camera. And 1917 is just like a masterclass. Story-wise, it's based off of a true story, but if you just look at the story on paper, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill normal story, but the way that it was handled, the way it was directed, I thought 1917 was great. Next, number 5 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's the last movie of the Best Picture that I saw. I saw it very recently, I think the day before the Oscars. And it was interesting. I appreciated the dialogue. I appreciated that Tarantino was kind of shaking it up and doing something different. But it was pretty slow. The first 2 acts of this movie are really slow. The pace just doesn't help the movie. And then you get to that final act and it's just lightning paced. Everything happens right at that end and that conclusion. And it did feel a little more satisfying than something like Marriage Story, which I felt like didn't conclude in a way that, helped out the story. But at the same time, I think the fact that most of the movie was slow as opposed to being fast just didn't lend to a great movie. I mean, it's a good movie, just not a great movie. Not Best Picture, in my opinion. And then, the last movie nominated for Best Picture that I got to see was Parasite. And it's last, but certainly not least. It's actually last because it's my favorite movie on the entire list. Parasite, it was really what I expected from all of these other films, but I really got it in Parasite because you didn't want to take your eyes off the screen. You just kept getting drawn farther and further into this crazy story, and you didn't care where the director or the writer or the actors were taking you. You just wanted to go. You just wanted to figure out how everything works, and you wanted to see how everything would play out, and you really just coasted from the beginning to the end of this movie. Not a second was uninteresting, and Parasite was really great. I feel like Parasite was almost like 3 different movies. The first act is like this heist film. It has these high stakes. It's really funny and campy. The second act is this like darker thriller and scary psychological drama that just keeps raising the suspense. And then in the end, you got this really sad and somber just look at, these themes that are way bigger than what you thought you were getting into. You really deal with classism and the struggle between the rich and the poor and how that manifests in modern day. And Parasite was just great. I gotta say, it was, from beginning to end, it was exactly what I wanted from a Academy Award Best Picture. So, in case you guys can't already tell, my pick for Best Picture was Parasite. Alright, and I thought 1917 was definitely my runner-up pick, but I felt I would have been confident with 1917 winning for direction or cinematography, and then Parasite taking it home for Best Picture, original screenplay, things like that. I also really dug the sound design in Parasite. And in the end, I was right. It was almost exactly what happened. So my pick was, I really wanted Parasite to win for Best Picture and 1917 to win for Best Direction or Cinematography. And that's basically what happened. So I was overall pretty proud with how it came out. As far as, Best Actor, Actress, Supporting Actress, I watched the entire show, but I didn't really care. I'm going to be honest. As far as performers, I didn't see any, real standout performances that was like, oh, this has to win for Best Actor, Actress, Supporting Actor, so on. So I was mostly just focused on the pictures. And other category that I was watching closely for was Best Animated Short, to see if Hair Love, directed by Matthew A. Cherry and produced by Karen Tolliver, starring Issa Rae as a voice actress, crowdfunded. It's just a short film I've been following for a little while, and they won the Oscar for Best Animated Short, and they are the successor of Kobe Bryant and his short film Dear Basketball, which won the Oscar last year. And it was an amazing moment. I felt like that was really the moment of representation at the Oscars, because outside of that, there wasn't a lot at all. Honestly, it was a pretty white year for the Oscars. Although we do have Parasite, whose cast and crew are all Korean. It was a Korean language film that won Best Picture, which I think was the first Korean language film ever to do that. And we also had Taika Waititi, who took home a couple awards for Jojo Rabbit, and he's an indigenous Maori man. And he's just a great person, so I always love to see Taika Waititi win. But as far as black movies, writers, directors, as far as, representation of women, it was very scarce this year. And of course, they tried to make up with it with little things like Janelle Monáe performing the opening and featuring characters from movies that got snubbed, and things like Chris Rock showing up, someone doing a rap recap of what happened. But honestly, none of it is as good as actual representation on that Oscar stage, and seeing people of color winning in all sorts of categories, for direction, for sound design, for sound editing, for production design, costume design. Like, Oscars, you got to do a little better, all right, next year. And of course, there were the films that a lot of people said got snubbed at this year's Oscars, so I'm going to shout some of them out. We've got films like Us and Dolomite, which I got a chance to see, and Dolomite is amazing. I don't know why it was left out of Oscar consideration. Dolomite was a great movie, and for someone like me who is a black filmmaker, exactly what the film was about, trying to make independent films, it really struck a chord, and that was a film that I felt really represented me this year. There were also movies like Midsummer, which I thought was really good from a visual standpoint as well as a writing standpoint. Oh, and Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler's triumphant return to film with incredible performances, a great story that was really easy to follow. These films that I mentioned, I enjoyed all of them, and I don't know if they would have contended for Best Picture because Parasite was amazing, but it would have really been nice to see them get some sort of recognition on that Oscar stage. I was just concluding before my SD card decided to fill up. The Oscars, it was great. It was great to see films like Parasite get reception from an American audience and be recognized as it was probably the best picture of all the films this year. It would be great to see a lot more representation of people of color and women on that stage, not just one year to satisfy the hashtags, but it would be great to see a culture of representation in the Academy, because, as a black filmmaker, I feel like inclusion and representation is definitely one of the most important parts of film. And you don't always have to see yourself on screen to feel represented, but people who have been supporting the film industry and who make up a good portion of the consumers for these types of films, I think they should definitely see themselves reflected in that media that they decide to take in. So I just want to, I want everyone who is a part of the Academy and, just a part of Hollywood and filmmaking culture at large to consider that next time you're making your movie. Not just black people in front of the camera, but behind the camera, black people in the writing staff, black people in the producing staff, black people on the stage when you go to accept your award, and as well as women and people of color from other ethnicities. Representation is important for all people, and I feel like the Motion Picture Academy the Motion Picture Academy does have a certain obligation to represent the people who contribute to this industry so much. And so that's going to be my overall wrap up of the movie. If you haven't seen Parasite, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, any of these movies, I guarantee, even Marriage Story, I guarantee you guys go check them out, because it may be your favorite new thing. You might not agree with how I feel about the movies, but you might find your new favorite movie in this group. You might not. Also, check out the movies that got snubbed. Recommend that you check out Dolomite, one of my favorite movies of the year. Go check out Us, Midsummer, Uncut Gems, all great films. And yeah, that's going to be about it. So, I'll see you guys in the next video next Thursday, and weekly uploads every week. So, I'll see you there. Peace.
Somebody many great directors nominated this year?
I don't know, Chris. I thought there was something missing from the list this year.
Vaginas?
Yeah.
No. Cynthia did such a great job in Harriet hiding black people that the Academy got her to hide all the black nominees. Is Eddie Murphy under this stage?
Eddie, I loved you